Hi everyone, thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate it. I'm Orlando Ruiz Jr. Welcome to another classic movie review. This is my review of a film that came out back in 1993. This is The Fugitive, directed by Andrew Davis, the director of movies like Code of Silence, starring Chuck Norris. He also directed Above the Law, Steven Seagal's big breakout film from 1988, and his 1992 film Under Siege. And he also directed movies like A Perfect Murder, starring Michael Douglas and Gwyneth Paltrow from 1998, which was a remake of a great Hitchcock movie, Dial M for Murder, which is a movie that I plan to talk about very, very soon on this channel. Um, Andrew Davis was one of my favorite directors back in the 90s, and I'm sad that he doesn't make any more films because he was always making some really great movies back in the day, and this being one of them, of course. This movie stars Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones in an Oscar winning performance. And speaking of awards, this movie was actually nominated for 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. Lost to Schindler's List, of course. No problems there because that deservedly won that Best Picture Oscar. This film was actually based on a television series from the 1960s. And back in the 1990s, there was kind of a trend in Hollywood where a lot of studios were making films based on old TV shows. In 1991, they made the Addams Family movie, the first one, and then a sequel to that in 93. And I think 93, we also got the Beverly Hillbillies, which was also based on an old TV show. 1996, we got Mission Impossible, also based on a 60s show. In 1997, Val Kilmer starred in a film called The Saint, which was based on a spy show from the 1960s as well, that starred the great Roger Moore, who would eventually become Bond in the 1970s. And in 1998, we also saw a movie release of a film called The Avengers, nothing to do with Marvel Comics. This was based on a spy show that came out in the 1960s as well. And for me, I think the best adaptation from a television show still is The Fugitive from 1993. This movie is intense from start to finish. It has a great opening. At the beginning of the film, we meet our main character for the first time, Dr. Richard Kimble, played by Harrison Ford, who's sporting a pretty thick beard in the first 15 minutes of the film. And the film opens with shots of the Chicago landscape. We see, a lot of skyscrapers from overhead, some pretty nice aerial photography intercut with some shots of Richard Kimble having some kind of a fight with somebody whose face isn't quite revealed. And then we see Richard Kimble being interrogated by police. The more that the police question Dr. Kimble, the more they seem to believe that he was the one that murdered his own wife. And Dr. Kimble claims that it was actually a one-armed man, who is the same man that he fights in the beginning of the film. Not long after that, we see a trial that is kind of intercut with the last moments of his wife, and we see the reactions of Dr. Richard Kimble as he sits there listening to a 911 tape where his wife says his name out loud, and the jury kind of misinterprets it as her naming him as the killer, but it also can be interpreted as her just calling out his name in her very last final moment. And so it doesn't look very good for him, and with all the evidence that they have and a crappy lawyer on his part, he gets convicted of the murder. And for a good few minutes during the opening credits, the credits kind of stop, and then once the trial is over, and then we see him being put onto a bus, kind of being transferred to prison, the credits kind of start to roll again. And it's the first time that I ever noticed something like this, where a movie kind of completely stopped the opening credits to kind of have you pay attention to what was going on, and then the credits kind of continue. And I always thought that was a very creative choice. I thought it was very cool editing wise. This movie has some very, very top notch editing and filmmaking techniques all the way through it, and probably one of the reasons why this movie was able to get that Best Picture nomination. It's very, very solid filmmaking. And then we see Richard Kimble on this bus, which eventually there's a mishap on the bus. And, I don't want to give away exactly what happens because that's part of one of the most thrilling moments in the movie. But eventually he does manage to escape. And then we have our movie. We have our fugitive on the run. And that's where our Best Supporting Actor of the Year comes into play. The great Tommy Lee Jones shows up with his own little crew of U.S. Marshals, him being the head U.S. Marshal of the group. And this guy is basically a hound dog on two legs. He is amazing. In the film, Jones plays the character Samuel Gerard, and he has tons of fun to watch throughout this movie. And you can tell that Tommy Lee Jones was having a blast playing this part. It's a great role, the kind of role that he could have went a lot further with in terms of hamming it up a bit more. But he's actually pretty restrained, and at the same time has just enough fun with the part that you believe a lot of the kind of the jokiness and a lot of the camaraderie between him and his group of U.S. Marshals. The group of U.S. Marshals that work with Samuel Gerard in this film don't feel like cardboard cutout caricatures of characters from other movies. They actually feel like real people because of the dialogue in the film. It all feels very spontaneous, and some moments actually feel kind of improvised, which actually helps this film. And a lot of their back and forth between each other and between Samuel Gerard feels very organic, feels very natural, and it's actually very fun to watch. There are some great action set pieces in this movie. There is one involving a bus and a train that is so much fun to watch because it involved a real train back in the day, no CGI. There might have been a little bit of blue screen work in some of this, but it's not very kind of showy. It's very well done. There is a great chase through the streets of Chicago in broad daylight where Kimble is escaping through a crowd after walking out of a crowded jail. And that's a pretty thrilling moment in the film. The action in this film stays with you, I think, because this movie doesn't feel like an action film. It feels more like a character driven thriller. The music in this film is excellent. It's one of my favorite music scores of all time in any film. It was done by the great James Newton Howard, who also contributed to music for movies like the movie Outbreak. And if you watch the Dark Knight trilogy, it's his name that you see next to Hans Zimmer. He kind of co composed with Hans Zimmer on those films. His music is tense, it's exciting, and you really notice it through a couple of scenes in this movie where we have a couple of montages. One montage in particular, I believe, where it's like time is kind of passing by as this investigation is going, and we see Samuel Gerard, Tommy Lee Jones' character, doing his thing, going to different places, interviewing different people, colleagues of Dr. Richard Kimble that he knew before he was arrested. That's also intercut with Richard Kimble doing his own thing as far as trying to find the man who killed his wife. And as he's trying to get away from the U.S. Marshals and evade the police throughout the film, he's also trying to find this one armed man that he knows is the one that did it. And so, as he's looking for him, he's also trying to leave little bits of breadcrumbs for the U.S. Marshals to follow so that they can also get a sense of what he's trying to do. I gotta mention Harrison Ford's performance because even though Tommy Lee Jones took away an Oscar for this role, I believe Harrison Ford was nominated for a Golden Globe, and then once the Oscars came around, he was completely snubbed, which I think is a crime because I know in '93 there were a lot of great films with great performances, but Harrison Ford was so good in this movie. I think this is maybe his best performance. He is also great in a movie called Witness. I understand that is a movie that he was nominated for Best Actor for, but if he should have ever won for anything, I honestly believe it should have been for this film. He is so damn good. Yeah, this is a movie that I highly recommend people check out. This is a 4-star thriller, and like I said, it does have action in it, but for the most part, it's not like wall to wall action. This movie is mainly a thriller at heart, and it's very well made. It's well directed, expertly directed. It is very well crafted. Like I said, top notch editing and grade A performances by your main cast. This is a film that I believe you can find on Max. I've seen it there once or twice before, but like I'm always saying, hard copies are out there, and if you want to check it out for yourself, check it out on Max or get yourself a hard copy because they're still out there for a limited time. This is my copy of The Fugitive, and that is the great Harrison Ford in one of the best movie posters, I believe. This is one of my favorite movie posters. I remember back in the summer '93, I went to the theaters to see this at least 3 times. That's how much I love this movie. And it's just a great thrill ride. It's one that is very memorable and one of my favorite taglines as well at the bottom there. What does it say? A murdered wife, a one-armed man, an obsessed detective. The chase begins. 1993 is The Fugitive. Check it out. It is great. Those of you that are new to this channel, if you like movies and if you like classic movies, if you're into this kind of thing, hit that bell and subscribe. I mostly talk about classic movies. Every now and then I can't help myself and I'll talk about something new, but for the most part, this is a classic movie channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you very much for watching. I always appreciate you. And don't forget to look out for the next classic movie review coming to you very soon. Please don't forget to comment, share. If you want to like the video, that's good. I appreciate it. And please look out for the next one. Everybody take care and peace out.